Hello, and welcome to Rock Your Block. We're your hosts, Cynthia Karnik and Jeff Beck, and this is GovPartners Presents. GovPartners is a full-cycle provider of management support and market research services with a particular focus on customer service and transportation. On this week's episode, we sit down with Partee, president of Curb, a mobile app which connects users with professional ride services. But first, let's jump into current events. San Francisco residents recently got a small glimpse into the future when a driverless Mercedes-Benz prototype was spotted cruising the streets, presumptively for test runs. The car houses rotatable lounge seating, which would allow for family of four to travel comfortably and safely. This market just seems to be heating up before it even begins, with big names such as Google, BMW, and Tesla, all reported launching their own research initiatives. So I am curious, with all of these big hitters like BMW, Tesla, and Google, if this is going to be a very expensive prototype for driverless vehicles, and is this going to take us into the driveless future?
I think with any new item, you're going to have an expensive upfront piece, and maybe that applies as well with the players in the field. But I think it's going to be interesting. Sitting here, we could be sitting here just like we are now, except for the vehicle driving us down the road.
I agree. I think it'd be great for office, work, and being able to increase your telework time, and just like having a private jet versus being on commercial. Time is money. So. Look forward to that day. Up next, lawmakers are proposing placing travel restrictions on individuals who owe hefty amounts to the IRS. This measure would regulate passport use for offenders with large outstanding balances owed to the tax agency. This would kind of be similar to the DMV denying vehicle registrations for those outstanding parking tickets. So I'm not sure how they plan on regulating this and how they plan to enforce it. If you have an outstanding debt to the IRS, and you go to the airport, are they going to deny you boarding after you've already paid for your ticket? Is there going to be a no tax list, like a no-fly list? How are they going to regulate this?
Hopefully it doesn't get to that point. Hopefully they're getting somebody ahead of time. But it does give the IRS another application. But can the IRS do that without adding a bunch of additional staff to be able to control this? And same with the airports. It sounds like it's going to add more to potentially collect in many ways. But it would be interesting to have a no tax list like the no-fly list.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It would definitely be very difficult to administer, and might take a while to get this notice of proposed rulemaking in place. But it may be something that needs to happen, and maybe there are other ways they can actually kind of try to collect these taxes also, like maybe kind of put some kind of hold on credit card usage. But that's going to be an interesting take on how the collector taxes going forward is impacting people's travel, and tracking it through their passport. So next up in the news, ride-sharing service Uber Technology Inc. recently announced that a new round of funding valued it at $41 billion. The San Francisco-based company collected $1.2 billion that enables it to expand its workforce, lure new drivers, test a delivery service, and subsidize prices in some of the 250 cities around the world where it operates. This funding is a vote of confidence in Travis Kalanick, who is the Uber's co-founder and chief executive officer, and his brash personality has courted controversy. Uber is now valued at $41.2 billion, which is easily the highest for a private startup, and is now backed by venture capitalists. This is above the market capitalization of any publicly traded company, including Delta Airlines, Inc. So I applaud Uber. I mean, that's a huge evaluation for an app-based company. How do you think they will fare going forward with some of these other new technologies, enhancements, and driverless vehicles, and other things that have happened in their network?
Yeah, I think it depends on where they continue to go and what those other players are. And obviously Google's been involved with them at some points along the way and has somewhat pulled back from that. But at the same time, their evaluation keeps going up. But things have changed with them internally as well. Their CFO, after just being there from September 2013, has just recently stepped down into an advisory role, and potentially is leaving completely. I'm not sure how that factors in, but it seems like it plays a pretty significant role with an organization with that kind of evaluation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that anytime the CFO kind of steps down, that might be an indication that they are looking for someone that has the experience to kind of take them into an IPO. That could be the plan.
Very possible.
We'll see. But speaking of Uber, Uber and UN Women are launching a partnership to work together around the world for a shared vision of equality and women's empowerment. They intend to invest in long-term programs in local communities where they live and work, as Uber commits to creating 1 million jobs for women globally on the Uber platform by 2020. So I'm not sure if this is a political move. What do you think?
Well, there's been a lot of concerns in different parts of the country, in India and in other places where there's been some sexual tension and even potentially some assaults and different things. So that's definitely a factor. And so at the same time, is it a marketing position? And Uber has done a great job of that. They're a technology company, but just as much they're in a market position. And they've really done a good job of marketing themselves. The entire industry almost calls themselves that at times, so uses their name. So it is an interesting position to see where they go, but it's a great initiative to try to bring that many women into the workforce around the world.
Absolutely, I think it's both political and a marketing ploy, and so it's if it's for a good cause, that's also a good way to get the more jobs for women and expand in that workforce and maybe hopefully take care of some of their political problems. So at this time, we're going to take a short break and return with Sanders Partee, president of Curb. Stay tuned.
GovPartners presents a brief history of TNCs. So what is a TNC? It's a transportation network company which allows users to connect with non-commercial drivers through an online platform. Popular examples include Uber and Lyft. So what's the big deal? TNC popularity has grown substantially, which has led to a steep decline in business for the taxi industry. So what does this all mean? While continued growth is expected, many TNCs are facing problems such as lawsuits and regulatory issues, and only time will tell what the future holds for the industry.
Welcome back to GovPartners Presents on Rock Your Block. Today we have Sanders Partee, president and co-founder of Curb, a mobile app which connects users with professional and quality ride services. Welcome, Sanders. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Can you give us a brief history of Curb and how it started?
Sure. We got started way back in the days of flip phones and Blackberries.
Okay.
What we do now is booking rides on fancy smartphones, but back then it was all about automating the electronic payment of taxis. So business travelers who are out and about needed to do their expense report and found that taxis were the #1 self-reported expense on an expense report. So automating that and having a trusted electronic receipt was our original mission when we got started.
Great. Describe your role at Curb and how it's changed over the years.
Yeah, it's been an exciting time. I was a co-founder, started the company, and have been president all along. So in the beginning, when it was a small company, I oversaw all of our operations. Today, I focus really on our supply, and supply would be cars, fleets, drivers. So I manage the part of our business where we're working with our fleet partners to help them compete in this ever-changing world.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the size of that fleet and how it continues to expand.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're in 60 markets around the United States, over 90 fleets, over 35,000 vehicles. This is pretty much a breakout year for us with all of the changes in the industry. One of the ironic effects is it's driving taxi companies to need technology, and in the old days, we would come to them and say, hey, would you please try our technology? Now they're more approaching us and saying, hey, we really need this to compete. So
it's kind of giving the old guard a chance to move into the technology realm.
It's perfect. It's a perfect storm. A lot of the changes people grumble about, but in all, it's made the entire transportation industry step up their game. I think that more people are using on-demand ground transportation than ever have, and so a lot of the disruptors have helped these guys focus and do a better job.
Very good. What's the overall mission of your organization, and has it changed since the inception?
Absolutely. The original, like I said, was providing automated electronic receipts for taxis. We do way more than that now. Where our primary mission is to provide easy, available rides, on-demand ground transportation from a professional, safe driver. So we want to make it easy, available, reliable.
That's important. Reliability and safety are huge keys to all of us. So, and obviously a big impact on the transportation as a whole. How does Curb fit into this new ride-hailing industry?
Like I said, we were here powering taxis before the so-called ride-sharing companies. I prefer to call them TNCs.
Okay.
I don't think they're traditionally doing much ride-sharing. We like to call them volunteer drivers or private drivers. So the changes in the model is that that it's focused us on professional drivers who've had background checks, who have proper insurance, who are licensed in the jurisdictions that they operate. So the changes really is focusing people on what choices they have available.
So Curb's not a TNC, but a technology company that continues to work with the kind of in between the taxi component and really work to improve the market as a whole.
Yeah, it's interesting. TNCs have a model of technology, and Curb has been able to provide that same level of technology in a business-to-business fashion. So on one side, we want to provide that easy, simple user experience for the consumer, but we also help these fleets and taxi and frankly other modes besides taxi are on deck, but to be able to provide that same level of service through technology.
Great, very, very good. How do you think the industry is going to continue to change, and how has it changed?
Yeah, so I think the biggest change in my time here is when we first came out. We were known as Taxi Magic, and going into a market, typically the biggest fleet that had the best service would want to be the exclusive Taxi Magic provider. As part of Curb, one of the things that we've done is recognize that we need to unify the supply. So and pretty much our big markets, all the fleets have agreed. So instead of having a model where the fleets compete against each other, and Blue Top wants to go against Red Top, wants to go against Yellow, wants to go against Blue Diamond. They're now starting to work together and say, hey, to compete in this modern world, we need to all get together so that the public knows that they have an option that's regulated and safe and professional. So, and that they can compete both on a supply basis and on a technology basis.
So I've seen that recently with some different pieces where counties or municipalities are going to a one app type concept to ensure that there's a better service overall.
It is interesting, and we're certainly participating in some of the major city initiatives on a major city app. I think that just as this industry is very fragmented, there's a lot of challenges in trying to get everybody together under one roof.
That's difficult in any arena.
Yeah. So our mission clearly is to be that one app. We are a national app. We have a majority of taxis connected to us in a number of cities. So we're well on our way to being that national taxi app, and hope to keep marching down that path.
Very good. What would you say, and you've already mentioned some of those, but what are the key differences between Curb and those new players into the market?
Yeah, I think the new players have a business model of going directly to a driver, to a volunteer. They have a technological process of onboarding, and they're trying to grow really, really fast. So in that fast growth, I think that there may be a couple of steps that may be passed. So what we're doing is we're partnering with established players who've been doing this stuff, been doing on-demand ground transportation, in some cases for 60, 70 years. So we feel like we have a safe alternative, a well understood business model, and are powering those guys where the grow at any cost, I think, sometimes has some hidden costs that people aren't aware of.
Fair enough. Has any of the recent legislation regarding the TNCs and related and taxi regulations as well, how have they impacted Curb, and how do you see them continuing to impact Curb?
I think that the changing regulatory environment puts a lot of people at dis-ease, that they are not sure what's happening. Are the TNCs legal? Am I insured in this vehicle? And I think that what it's done is galvanized the taxi industry together to get the message out that, hey, you have an alternative with a high-tech company like Curb to provide that level of service to get you a ride, safe, reliable, easy, available, all together and not in an ambiguous environment where, what is the exact insurance policy? What is the exact regulation? What happens if I'm in an accident? There's a lot of uncertainty there, which we just don't have.
Fair enough. I mean, with the taxi industry as a whole, they've had kind of this long-term, very regulatory area. Do you think some of that's going to come back as?
I think we're in the early days, frankly. I mean, you have Uber with this enormous valuation, Lyft raising enormous amounts of money. I think there's a concept of, just like in the financial service industries, of too big to fail. I think these guys are trying to grow to be too big to regulate, and have enormous amounts of money to spend on trying to get their political will imposed in the world. So I think that while those changes are going on, it's still early days, and there's a lot of parts of the business model that has grown so fast. I give them credit for growing and building a tremendously large business very fast. But the regulatory agencies, the insurance agencies, these guys are going to catch up, and it'll all sort out over the coming years.
Yeah, we've talked to some folks about the insurance component, and there's a pretty wide gap between that individual policy and the commercial policy, and where it should be in between. So, do you think the taxi companies can maintain their place in the industry with that rapid expansion?
I think the interesting thing about what taxi companies are going to do is they're going to find new ways to compete, and so where regulatory agencies have opened up some ambiguity, they're going to be looking to say, hey, I'm in the business of managing ground transportation, and it was just taxis. Maybe now it's something that the industry would call livery, which is more of an affordable sedan, where it's still licensed, it's still insured, it's still maybe managed by a fleet, but priced as a taxi, no meter. But and you're seeing a lot of taxi companies experiment with that kind of service. So it'll be, a lot of changes coming, and it's a fun time to be in the industry.
So potentially a higher level of service across the board because of the new entrants.
Absolutely. So where I think that the taxi market looks like they say, hey, these TNCs have come in and they've skimmed off the best rides out of our market, and but they've expanded the market, and so they're saying, hey, this market is now greatly expanded. Let's go back upstream a little bit and see if we can't compete on that level.
Fair enough. Can you describe how your business model has adapted as technology has adapted, and where do you see the next few years? Or can we keep up? Where does that technology keep moving?
Yeah, I think it's exciting. One of the things that we like to say is a fundamental shift at our company is being multi-fleet. And so when we come into an area, we can look at, you take Chicago or Portland as an example, where Chicago we have 7 different fleets, and we can look at all of that supply as if it's one fleet. If the consumer has a preference and they like to choose their favorite fleet, then they can do so. But if they don't, we can provide them the closest available, most reliable cab across all that. So I think the biggest change in our technology is being able to be a unifying app across multiple fleets. Ones that typically competed still would like to compete, but know that they need to collaborate to provide the level of service that the unregulated, unlimited TNCs have.
So with that, can you tell us a little bit about the app in general and how it gets out to the community and how they utilize it?
Sure. We're available in the Android and Apple app stores. Curb, search for taxi and you'll see us. Okay. Search for Curb and you'll see us. We've been consistently highly rated because we are a national app across the country. It's easy. You register. We can. One of the things our app offers is a cash option. If you would like to pay in cash in the taxi, you can do so. But it's pretty simple. Go to the App Store, download the app, put in your credit card. We have simple and easy payment with the app if you like, or like I said, you can pay in the car.
Excellent.
Lots of choices.
We're running up on time here fairly quickly, but there's been a lot of talk in the industry about that next step, the autonomous vehicle. Yeah. Where do those play into the role, or do we know at this point? And what do you think the next step is with those?
Well, as a technology guy, I would love to see anything super cool like the Jetsons. We've all been wanting it for a long time. Last week, I just bought a brand new car that parks itself, and I was so excited. But the problem with my self-parking car is I live in Old Town Alexandria, and there's no way it can get me into the spots that I can get in. And so, I while it's a nice feature, it's not useful for me in town. So, I can't bet against the self-driving car, but, I think there's a long way to go before we see, the perfect scenario where, everybody's everybody's okay with that.
But that improvement's ongoing and moving us in that direction of some sorts. Sanders, it's been great having you today on Rock Your Block. Our audience appreciates it.
Thank you very much.
Thank
it's been
you.
Great to be here.
We're going to take another quick break, but stay tuned. There's more to come on GovPartners Presents.
Welcome back. You're watching GovPartners Presents on Rock Your Block. Well, it seems about time for some crazy news. In this segment, we'll find stories from across the world related to transportation, ranging from the intriguing to the absurd. First up is a story out of Korea where Uber, once again, the transportation technology giant, is offering free rides to the citizens in hopes that they won't report drivers to the authorities. In Seoul, South Korea's capital city, the service is illegal and punishable for drivers for up to 2 years in prison, or fines for up to $20,000. As an incentive for participation, the government is offering rewards of a little more than $900 USD. It almost makes you wonder what the penalty would be for passengers. Almost. But it also makes you wonder if this could be a revenue incentive for the passengers, Jeff, because on one hand, you can get a free ride from Uber and then still complain and get a reward from the government.
That's true, but it's an interesting way to attract drivers, though. I mean, how do you attract drivers with a 2-year penalty and $20,000 fine? It seems pretty aggressive.
It's a pretty risk, yeah.
And a risk for the driver.
It's a risk for the driver, and they're still paying the driver. So, you know, the drivers are still collecting a salary.
I hope they're paying them a lot for that risk.
I agree. I hope so, too. Up next is a story that's pretty close to home. The Federal Air Marshal Service Dispatch, based in Herndon, Virginia, has launched a criminal investigation into whether or not at-risk flights were left without marshals on board. Program specialist Michelle D'Antonio is considered to be at the center of the inquiry, with reports that because of her access to personal info, she would look up employees and attempt to seduce them. She would also actually go, kind of rearrange their trips and go on sexual tryst. More than 60 employees are involved, but at this point in the investigation, D'Antonio is the main culprit. So I am wondering how many flights were impacted, and she's been a busy woman. And one of the ex or fiancés and wives of the gentleman that she was accused of having a tryst with indicated that her nickname is Badge Bunny, because she will date anybody with a badge. So she's been a very busy woman.
60 other people involved, and that many schedules being looked at, and booking hotels and rerouting marshals so that they can have these activities. There's a lot to be uncovered there.
Well, this went on for about a year or a little over a year, so it's a long time for these schedules to be manipulated with no one being able to police it. It's a kind of concern.
And 60 marshals is a pretty decent number. A few years back, it was almost a third of the marshal service. It's grown significantly over the past few years, but that's still a big number.
Still a big number, and there were a lot of text messages in the reports.
They were pretty interesting text messages.
Pretty interesting text messages. So she definitely, and also in the reports they were talking about how a lot of these TSA agents are retired Secret Service agents, and so they were kind of putting together that the stories of the Secret Service agents and the reports of them being reported hiring prostitutes and trying to marry these two together. So I'm not sure if one has anything to do with the other.
That makes a good story.
It makes a good story. Next up, the TSA found a stowaway pup while checking a suitcase at LaGuardia Airport. The agents were screening the baggage when alarm bells went off. After opening the bag, the agents found a live Chihuahua. The TSA tracked down the dog's owner, who had no idea that the pup had crawled into the suitcase while she was packing it for her trip. According to the Queens Courier, the woman's flight was supposed to have a layover in Chicago with a final destination of Los Angeles. The passenger's husband came to the airport to retrieve the dog and to take it home before her next flight. So the wife didn't detect the dog was in her luggage, and the husband didn't realize the dog was gone. So I'm thinking maybe the dog tried to escape.
don't know. You'd think in your luggage you would know that. I mean, even a Chihuahua, you're 8 to 10 pounds, even at the small size, you'd think you'd know that much activity. And Chihuahuas are not exactly calm little animals.
They are not. They are barkers,
Yes.
very loud barkers. And unless they're sedated, I don't see him sitting very still in luggage, while he's being transported through the airport.
Not at all.
So yeah, a very interesting story. I want to know the real reason behind the dog in the luggage. More details. But last up, we will leave you with a song when a flight attendant gives the new meaning to the term fly girl. According to this viral YouTube video, the attendant started boogieing down to the Bruno Mars hit Uptown Funk to entertain passengers as they waited for the guests to board the plane. Redditor Simon King, who shared the video on social media site, identified the woman as his sister, a former breakdancer turned flight attendant. So I haven't seen anything quite this delightful in a long time, said Cosmopolitan of the cute clip. So I think airlines actually should do this all the time. I think it should be one of the services that they provide. It would be great entertainment. It would make the flight go by faster, and it would make passengers happy if there's a delay or something didn't go right with the flight.
It sounds like a significant upgrade in entertainment from the college classes in cooking we were talking about in the last episode.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a great idea. Well, okay, our time is up. On the next segment of GovPartners Presents, we'll have transportation professionals discuss industry happenings. And in closing, I encourage our viewers to check in with us at Twitter @CovertTravelers and contact us via email at info2@govpartners.com. Let us know your take on topics related to air, ground, sea, and transportation worldwide. St. Augustine once said, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page." Thanks again for watching Rock Your Block and today's segment of GovPartners Presents.